The period panel is sponsored by Active Iron. Use the code HERSPORT30 on their website www.activeiron.com to get 30% off. Welcome to the period panel. We are delighted to have Louise Quinn on with us today. Did you have a nice Christmas and a happy New Year?
Very nice Christmas, very quiet, just with the family, thankfully, and yeah, just really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mel, for taking the time to chat about this. It's a really interesting topic. So the first question for you is, do you remember your first period or having it when you were younger?
Yeah, I do remember having it. Yeah, I would have been just in school, just a regular school day. I'm not sure. I think I did feel a bit off. I think I felt a bit, just not right in the stomach, or obviously thinking that was my stomach, and just feeling really off. And then I just remember that feeling of getting my period and being like, oh, just sitting down in class and just being like, oh, what's going on here? And then just having to go to the toilet and just being like, wow, this is it. And kind of like freaking out a little bit. But I do remember at the time, so I was in first year in school, and we would have had some chats in school, and we had a very good nurse who just kind of talked us through it and then gave us like special packs. This was even before I had ever had my period as well. But thankfully I held on to mine. I think in the first instance, there was loads of like pads being stuck up on the walls that the lads were, sealing them off everyone. But thankfully, I think I maybe had some, or I still went to the nurse anyway and was just explained what happened. And she was brilliant. And yeah, that was it. And thankfully then, I did kind of have to wait around a little bit though until school ended. And I think, and it was just one of those moments that I was, I think, just taken a little bit aback by. It's just one of those things you're just kind of like, wow, this is, the next step. This is what you hear about the period and what's going to happen and, what's going to do. And I just remember then getting home and actually being scared to tell my mom. Like, I don't know why, I was just maybe embarrassed, not even scared, just embarrassed. And literally, she just gave me like a kiss in the head, and she was like, "Oh, you're a woman now." And that was it. And then just like walked out of the kitchen. I was like,
"Okay."
But like that's it. It was just one of those. I have two older sisters as well, so she's been able to just be like, "Yeah, this is grand. You're going to be fine.
You'll all be okay." Like,
I'll be okay. But she was probably worried about how hormonal I was now going to be. That was probably a worry.
Do you remember like being a bit like you mentioned kind of kind of a little bit of embarrassment and stuff, but do you remember being like worried about it, and like how did you handle it when it came to sport and
that? Like I don't really remember kind of pre being worried about it. It was just one of those of like something that was going to happen. I don't think it was really a thought in my head. It was just kind of like, they did make, in school, they did make you feel as comfortable as you could. And I remember literally just we were all just sitting around in a circle, and they just passed around tampons, passed around pads. We just kind of spoke about it and just kind of, even made like a little bit of fun out of it. Like, as in, feel how strong a tampon is. Like, it's not going to, there's nothing to worry about. It's not going to, get stuck or anything. It's going to be all good. And, but I think just being a little bit scared. And then, I think when it just came to sport, it was something more difficult. I suppose it would have been for me, like, you kind of maybe start off using pads, first of all, just to kind of, that's just kind of what you're used to. But I think then playing sport, it was something then that I had to kind of, talk to my mom about, or that she even brought up in conversation to me, how's it going? And, just does it feel uncomfortable? And then it was kind of making that transition then to tampons was very important, because then I just felt far more comfortable. And then sometimes you don't even know that you have your period then as well sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of logistics to kind of manage when you're involved in sport, and particularly a sport like football. Like when you think of match days, and I think it's something that maybe, lots of people don't maybe consider unless they're actually involved. But like, even if you're playing at home, there's kind of the warm up, then there's obviously playing the first half, then you've half time, then the second half. And like, it actually can be quite a long period of time that you can't maybe get to the bathroom and that type of thing. And then that's like playing something at home. So obviously if you're playing away, then you have travel time, you've gone to somewhere where you don't know where the facilities are like, and like all that kind of thing. So What's your like best advice for people when it comes to like that? Because obviously it can be kind of daunting to think of, like when you put all those minutes together, you know, you could be looking at around like 2-3 hours, which depending on someone's period, you know, might not really fit into, you know, their flow and using tampons and pads and that type of thing. What would be your top tips?
Ooh, top tips. Yeah, no, that's a really, you know, kind of interesting one. And it's almost down to experience now of just kind of timing it. But it's kind of knowing your body, like as you say, in the first couple of days, it could be a heavier flow, you know, and obviously trying to change it more often. So I do really think about that, obviously, like first thing in the morning, you know, making sure to change tampons, pads, and then, yes, sort of just planning it. So now I know that so we go on a bus. Thankfully there is, you know, it's a very, very small toilet on the bus. But also that we make a stop off. So kind of just almost trying to plan it around that if we're traveling then to an away game. And then also then, and again, it's about, you do really think about it. You're kind of like, okay, right. You think you want, I suppose, a fresh tampon or something to use just pre-game. So then you kind of feel, all right, at least for 90 minutes now, I know that I'm, you know, it's a fresh tampon. Hopefully it's not going to, you know, be such a heavy flow, but you know, you really think about it, but then also you have the half time to kind of come in, change, do, you know, just do what you feel. But it is something to be really, really conscious about. And again, our team are very good at this. Our, you know, both Irish team and Birmingham and the medical staff are very, very good. You know, they most of the time have spare tampons with them, and you know, generally now, and it's I think what one thing is actually have these conversations in your team to become comfortable around the people that you're with, to actually be like, because, and I've done it so many times where you just either haven't expected your period to come on, or you've forgotten a tampon or a pad, and you can actually just go to your friends or teammates and say, listen, does anyone have a spare tampon I can use? And usually then it's just so comfortable. And then there's 6 people there being like,
it's like the walls are broken down and everybody's like fine to talk about it.
Absolutely fine to talk about it, and to kind
obviously
of
help each other out, like,
and just look out for each other. And you know, it's been one of those things even in football that you've heard a lot, like a lot of teams wear white shorts.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about this.
You know, and that, like, that has been something that players have spoken about, like just being like, it is incredibly frustrating. So again, if you're kind of comfortable with your team and doing that, it's obviously sometimes you're just like, you know, watch my back during the game, will it, just in case. And it has happened where I've played in teams and some girls have come on their period without even, you know, knowing that it was coming on, and it was definitely a challenging moment. But you know, 99% of the time it is going to be okay, and there's not going to be a major trauma, or you know, you have then half time to go and you know, and sort everything out. But for me personally, when I'm actually on my period, I then wear like undershorts. I wear skin shorts, just like, so the same color like white shorts underneath the actual match day shorts. And that just gives me real peace of mind. I actually, that's kind of just that extra bit of cover and security then that I think you need. And so for me personally, that's kind of something that I use it on and off as well, like just during, even when it's winter, if it's cold, but definitely during my period, then I put on the undershorts just to, it literally just makes me feel at ease and at comfort then. So I think that's, you know, that's maybe something to consider as well.
Think about it as well. Yeah, no, that's definitely a good piece of advice. In terms of the white shorts, like, what are your kind of thoughts on that? Because there's a lot of conversation going on we've heard it in football, we've heard it in kind of GAA communities and in rugby as well. Lots of people suggesting it, you know, wearing darker shorts to like obviously help kind of maybe alleviate a bit of stress for, you know, girls and women. But then I've actually heard other people talk about it and say like, no, it's fine, like you can get on with it, and you know, we don't want to change the whole kit. And then because like with a club, then you could be looking at, you know, are you changing the whole club strip as well, which is like the men's and women's team? And, you know, obviously lots of teams do have like white shorts and stuff. So I'd just be curious to hear what your kind of thoughts are on it.
Yeah, it is a very difficult kind of thing to do. Exactly. Are you changing the entire kit just to support that? But I do think it is something that can be thought of. It's something as well where a lot of teams and all the time crying out for women's fit kit. So why not then, you know, tailor the shorts kind of in that way as well to, you know, if you can most of the time try make it more comfortable for women. And I think that's even something as well. They've done it. They do it in men's shorts where they actually almost have like what is like a pair of underwear in them.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's tailored for men. So they're more comfortable at, you know, keeping everything together. Like, why can't they kind of maybe try to do the same for women and girls, and just, yeah, tailor the kit in that way. Obviously it could be very difficult if you are a team that's in maybe full white, but if not, as we say, we're blue, or, you know, we are blues, and why not then just wear blue shorts as a full kit? And maybe that's just how women's football then progresses. That's how it's just slightly tailored, yeah, to make that bit of a difference, to make players comfortable. We're already, you know, feeling maybe uncomfortable in our body. Like
so you're experiencing it, but yeah,
you know, your back is aching, your hamstrings are sore, your stomach could be in pain. You know,
you don't want to be worried about, you know, any kind of leaks and stuff as well, like to make you a bit more self-conscious.
It's such a, you hear it every time anyone has the, you know, it's forever a worry, but obviously most of the time it is absolutely fine, and you learn to deal with it. But
in terms of like,
it's never going to go away.
We're talking about it like being a bit of a worry and stuff, and like the reality of it is like 50% of the population experiences it. So like, how do you think society handles it? And the fact that we're saying this, like, it's kind of wrong that we would feel a bit embarrassed about it. And like, obviously, like, I completely understand what you're saying in terms of like, you can feel so like crap basically, that it's just sometimes you just don't want to deal with it. Like, you might be really happy to talk about periods, but just sometimes when you're kind of experiencing it, you're like, oh, I don't want to have to deal with it. But should we be a bit more open? And like, has kind of society, you know, trained women and trained men to think about the topic?
Yeah, it is literally, you know, obviously the most natural thing in the world, and it's been really stigmatized. And so for me, I'm very happily, you know, open to talking about it, and I'm doing the same anytime I come into a new team. And, you know, usually there always is, you know, male staff members. There's obviously, I'm in a team where it's mixed, where there's men, women, but I do just talk to, you know, especially then the S&C or the physio, like about my symptoms. You know, sometimes they might see, I'll do like a wellness questionnaire, and they'll see that my hamstrings are, I've said that my hamstrings are sore, and they'd be like, oh, like was training, you know, was too heavy or something with the gym. And I was like, no, not like, I'm on my period, or like, you know, and I would have checked that off the box, but you just have to reiterate it again. I'm on my period. My hamstrings get so achy, the bottom of my back, my hips. And I can actually almost, sometimes I get physio leading up to those 2 days because my hips are starting to kind of tighten up, just areas around it. And like, you know, the physio is kind of like, oh, did something happen in training? I'm like, no, I'm just getting achy because of my period. And it's such a common feature for me. So now he's really kind of getting used to it. And I might come in and be like, oh yeah, can I guess, you know, kind of mobilized here, there. And now he's kind of getting to grips of being like, okay, yeah, this is nothing to worry about. It is actually that it's just these extra kind of pains. So I'm completely open with doing this. I'm sometimes not as sure maybe how some of the other girls are kind of open about it, because it is tough. We do have like a predominantly male coaches, but we still do have a female physio, a female doctor, and even like a a female nutritionist and a female chaplain, and they're very good, and they're actually going to be putting on a talk for our team soon, just about periods and how you can try handle it more in sport, in terms of if it's your nutrition, and just just trying to be comfortable with it. But I'm all about trying to educate kind of the male
we have to experience it. They can sit through a slightly awkward conversation
like absolutely, they really have to. It's something they just have to take on, and because it does, and it can affect your performance. So as coaches, physios, managers, they need to figure out that it's not just every day is fine, and this is that. No, like it can really affect you, and then sometimes it doesn't at all, and it's not really a concern. But
how have you kind of learned
a squad of 20, then it's going to come up.
How have you kind of learned, like you've obviously kind of identified different things that you experience, so how did you kind of figure all that kind of stuff out?
Literally it's still experience, and I think obviously then even for me as I'm getting older, even my kind of symptoms or my period has kind of just changed in ways, and what it's done, and it is just about really listening to your body, like really listening. So I know the kind of few days beforehand, a couple of days.
Do you take notes and stuff, or how do you kind of like figure out that it's related to your period? Like, do you like kind of trends and stuff?
So I have an app, the Fisher Women app, and I just mark it, and they can obviously give a lot of symptoms if you want to write them down. For me, obviously, it's just knowing which phase I'm in, or whatever, and then they also give, with your 4 phases, the app then just gives advice, as in this is now a time that you need to up your carbs, you need to actually take more, make sure there's more vitamin C, iron, etc. in your diet. And just really like useful articles that are just that are in there. So for me, that app has been great, and it's something there where I can really tell then when just even having that idea of knowing when you're on, like not just kind of thinking, oh yeah, I'll remember that.
Because you always forget, like
you always forget. And it's even that, like, because sometimes it might come 2 days early, it might come 2 days late, it may sometimes during pre-season it can be a week late, 2 weeks late, something when you're putting your body under a different strain that it maybe hasn't been used to. So for me, tracking it is absolutely vital. And then I know maybe the couple of days before I get my period, the reason that I'm eating everything in sight is more than likely because I'm going on a period, and
it's on the way.
And it's so important for me, even in general outside of my period. Nutrition is massive. It's absolutely so important to me. I think it's one of the reasons, like how I'm able to do what I can do, because I feel my body so well. So again, I really listen to my body again around my period. If I want to, like, eat everything in sight, then I will. But obviously I'll then maybe try and make some healthier choices with what I'm kind of eating, but I'll put it all in, because the body's I feel like
it's looking for something.
It's looking to be fueled. It's looking to make sure that it can repair itself.
In terms of like your journey, to say, like from when you started playing football and you're involved in sport as a kid to now, like how's the landscape changed, or like what have you noticed in terms of conversation around period or information that's out there? Like it sounds like there's a pretty good setup there in Birmingham, like in terms of even like obviously access to kind of information, physio and everything, and it sounds like it's a pretty open conversation. And I mean, it sounds like you had really good experience in school as well, which is, I'm surprised there was actually that much conversation around it. It sounds like it was good, because there's lots of instances where that doesn't happen. But what have you kind of noticed?
No, it's for me, it's just been how comfortable you can get with your team. I think if you have these conversations, either bring someone in to talk, to talk to the group, and just like open up the stage to to be as comfortable, or actually, if it's not something you want to talk about, it's absolutely fine. But there just maybe those moments where you just need to have a quiet word with someone, with one of your pals on the team, and just be like, just keep an eye out for me on the pitch, just in case I leak or something happens, or have you got a spare tampon, has this, that and the other. And I think just getting that out there instantly, because now I think, you go, especially now when we're in with the national team, we are really as comfortable as anything talking about everything. So periods just isn't a problem. So you can go in and know that it's just not going to be an issue either way. And if you are then feeling maybe a little bit, you're feeling a little bit low or a little bit down, a little bit moody just because of it, people then know, and they know then, okay, yeah, she's not herself today, or she's not that, but it's because of this. We'll all look out for you, but it's not a problem.
And do you remember when you were playing, like when you were younger and stuff, like what was there much conversation within teams? Because I know you mentioned like that it is still a sport that's predominantly coached by men. Like say when you were like 14, 15, 16, like was there much conversation around it then?
For me, not that I can remember. No. And again, it probably did just maybe help me a bit. I don't remember obviously specific conversations, but I was then kind of like 15, 16 playing in a senior team. So I think that does kind of help, but I still think it's still quite still in those ways. I think people kind of kept themselves, and then just as you gradually started to get older, it definitely became more natural to kind of talk about it.
People get a bit more comfortable when they're older, but I think your advice of like starting the conversation and bringing people in maybe to talk to younger girls to kind of help them with it and stuff is a good point, because I think once you start the conversation within the team and once everybody kind of realizes, okay, we all experience this, the kind of floodgates are open and people are happy to talk about it then.
I think I've probably sprung it on a few kind of coaches before, because I've like, even when I've actually gone in and spoken to teams, and they're obviously like, how do you recover and this, and how do you feel? And sometimes then I bring it up and I'm like, oh yeah, I do this, but I'm like, girls, as you know, you're going to have your period, things are going to change. Like, your body might feel a little bit different in ways. And I've kind of brought it up in conversations, maybe with no kind of, there was no trigger to it. It just came naturally to me. And for me, that's, again, it's so important. And as you say, it's just a topic of conversation, maybe again, because they are male coaches, that they're not going to bring it up. And sometimes it just can be so difficult. And then, and for me as well, it's then just important to bring in someone then who actually obviously has experienced this. Because again, you probably don't really actually want your male coach to give you a talk about that. You obviously want them to know that they're comfortable and that they accept what's going on and the information, that they take on information, but they haven't
experienced it, like
and not, they really just can't kind of make comment on it. But knowing then that they can be comfortable around that conversation and maybe know the effects of what it has, I think is hugely important. But I just think the earlier that as a young girl and a teenager, that you can just kind of be as open about it as possible, that's just been the best thing. And it's just a process of life that you really learn how to kind of combat it. And as I said, for me, just wearing undershorts has probably been my savior all the time. Wearing just an extra layer, when you're on your period, under your shorts has been my go-to for literally 15, 16, 17 years.
And like once the conversation starts then as well, like you're obviously giving tips here, but you can learn things from within your team and stuff as well, which is the benefit of having the conversation. In terms of you're talking a little bit about how you kind of physically feel a little bit different, whether it's kind of that kind of tightness in your hamstrings or you might feel a little bit sick and that type of thing. When you were training or playing a game, like how do you kind of park that and focus on what you have to do? So, park the physical side and not let it get to you kind of from a psychological perspective.
For me and just the experience I've kind of, and it obviously comes up even in general, but that exercise can actually help your symptoms and help, certain things that can actually, when you get moving, it does, it can ease some of the symptoms and some of the pain. So I put that in my head I'm getting out of bed that morning and I'm like, bent over, hot water bottle on. I make sure then, like sometimes if different things for breakfast, I'm kind of like, right, big bowl of porridge, something just nice and warm, bit of comfort, cup of tea, coffee. But then for me, it is like, okay, it is sometimes a little bit mind over matter. And sometimes it can be, that painful that it really kind of doesn't, it can be very uncomfortable. But for me, most of the time, if I've started a warm up or started the run, I think it also takes your mind off it as well, one thing, and then also just kind of getting moving is something. So I use that to my benefit. Then I'm like, I know once I get out and get training, this will be better for me, as much as I don't want to do it, which happens so often. There's no doubt about it. Especially when it comes to gym and you have to squat or you have to hip thrust and you're like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But again, it's just about knowing. I literally had to do it last week, and we're doing some of these exercises, hip thrust, and I said it to the S&C, and I was trying to do it. I didn't feel kind of as strong, so I was like, right, I'm just gonna. And he was very good. He was like, right, just drop down one set, just do a little bit less. Obviously, if it's, if you feel it's really bad, like, don't do too much. But then that was it. I did my 2 sets, felt better for it after, and was just kind of, then that it's a good way of kind of almost passing time. And, because sometimes usually the most like painful bit is like maybe 2 to 3 hours kind of, that's maybe what it is for me. And it can be on and off. I kind of feel mainly uncomfortable kind of first, second day, 2 or 3 hours, then it eases. It might come back a little bit later on, but just once I get past that first kind of window, I know then hopefully it'll all start kind of easing off.
In terms of the team, and I know in football specifically that more teams are starting to track the cycles together, and that coaching structures are looking at it a little bit more. What have you kind of seen develop, and what kind of structures I guess are in place in the club? Like, do you adjust your training at different phases? Has it really gotten down into the kind of granular detail with each athlete specifically, or how does it kind of operate with you guys?
This is something that still hasn't really come through for a team that I'm in at the moment. I'm being really honest. I think sometimes it starts and people have good intentions, but then it just kind of filters out. And maybe that is down to actually that because there just hasn't been enough research done about it. So, it's always good intentions of, so they do ask, obviously, when we fill out an app in the morning, about if or when you're on your period, but there's not any massive detail. So for me, I've never had a training tailored
because of it.
And this is something that I would love to happen. And I think it is. Maybe Chelsea women, I think, are the one who are leading the way completely in terms of that. I'm unsure about other clubs at the moment. But
it seems to be Chelsea, and then the US national team they've done their kind of research on that with it. But as you're kind of saying, like, it's a mammoth enough task to kind of take on, and obviously the whole team has to be on board. And then, like, obviously it's really interesting from the scientific perspective, but also in terms of like resource, and you don't want to get too overwhelmed as an athlete with it either, because like you're saying, like sometimes it is mind over matter, and don't let it get to you when you're trying to train or play a game.
And it's exactly, it is sometimes mind over matter. It is something that we have to deal with every month. It's going to be different symptoms, kind of it might be different symptoms each time. But, and I think as well, it is maybe one of those kind of scary experiments for teams, like if they want to do it. So obviously Chelsea right now and when the US team come in, they have massive squads. So like, I think it is sometimes that you may actually sometimes not train or not obviously take part fully in a session, depending on your symptoms, depending on what day you are. So I think for certain clubs, so we'll say Birmingham, can we afford, we have a smaller squad, can we afford actually people to be, which then could be happening all the time. You have so many players that, some are going to be on at the same time, some are going to be, obviously we're all going to be on completely different cycles. But yeah, to kind of take someone out of a training session then and then change the whole session. Maybe you don't know that what happens if you come on during training or just directly before, just how does it alter things? But I think it is incredibly important. I still would love to be a part of something like that, to see how they change and develop it. Because I know that, on certain days that I do struggle, and then on other days as well, that you can actually feel where you feel incredibly strong and you keep playing harder and better. And some days you're kind of like, oh, what? Why was I feeling like so good today? And actually, maybe down to the cycle that you are on your period, and you then want that to happen again, but your hormones change that, and you're kind of like, oh, I did exactly what I did last week. Like I ate the same, I trained the same, I trained well, but it's incredible what your cycle can actually do.
I think that's part of the research that we'll see come out. Like they are seeing, like, sharing a little bit more around stuff like that, where you can kind of tailor your training to get the additional benefit out of it, so that there are, certain times, during your cycle that maybe strength training, that you kind of can take on a little bit more and use it to your advantage. But then as we're kind of talking about, it's kind of at, elite level, where it might be something that you can implement in a team. For a team, obviously it's harder than like an individual athlete, because if you're only looking after 1, 2, 3 athletes, like, it's obviously much easier to kind of analyze all of that. But if you're managing a panel, and you're trying to figure everybody out, like, it is obviously quite a challenge. But it'll be interesting as the research kind of continues. Like, obviously Fitter Women were involved with Chelsea and with the US national team, and there are some of the things that they're kind of finding, that there's different times where, look, obviously you're benefiting from some of the, like, nutrition aspects and that type of thing, and even tracking it helps. But I guess some of the advice we can give people is, like, you can start to note these things yourself and see how you feel. But definitely the piece around, like, strength, I think people are starting to notice, like, sometimes when they're in the gym, like, 2-3 days, or if they're running 2 or 3 days before their period starts, that they feel invincible and they're like, wow, look at me go. And then it could be like 2 days later they don't feel so good. But
you're uncoordinated. I've obviously been through it, like, where one of the girls, honestly, I think everyone almost used to know when she'd be coming on her period, because she would just become so clumsy. One of the most talented players I've ever played with, and she just wouldn't be like,
coordination changes.
Her coordination would just be all over the place, and she's like, I'm coming on my period now. And obviously, again, you can tailor it if it's mind over matter as well. But sometimes she was like, I just can't kick a ball today. She'd be falling over the ball. She'd still be world class, but just these little extra elements.
You'd know from playing with her that she's slightly off, like.
Yeah, exactly. She's just slightly off, and she knew it exactly. She knew it herself. And even going to lunch, and she'd be spilling her dropping her dinner or missing her mouth. And
that is some more of the things that we're starting to kind of see about the research, is that, like, I know actually from the app that I think it might be during your period, you might be better at, like, reading maps and stuff. But there's a couple of different kind of, I guess, areas in life, like skills that might be heightened during a certain time of your cycle. So, like, coordination could be down at one point, but your map reading skills can be up at another point, like, just kind of how it affects you psychologically. But
I'm going to go orienteering on those days.
Yeah, exactly.
That is it. I'm like, no, not training today. I'm going orienteering.
Yeah, but what would your kind of best advice be, I guess, for somebody that's maybe 12 or 13 and they're maybe kind of not really sure how to deal with their period, and if they're considering maybe leaving sport, or they just start feeling a little bit overwhelmed? I know obviously you've given that advice of talking to people, but is there anything else that you'd encourage?
I think as well, just obviously just trying to find out as much information as possible. Like, as you say, and maybe that's it. Maybe there just is someone in school or someone on your team that you can trust, that can just give you that little bit of, that extra information of, like, that's for me. I just think just having the information, and then personally, then just writing down simple little things, because I think sometimes I definitely have in the past, and even recently, where I've gotten where I thought, oh no, I think I've actually, like, I think I've injured myself here. Like something has kind of happened, and it's usually like in around my hips, or something is a lot tighter than it usually is, like your groin, or again, hamstring, glutes, hip flexors. And there was a time where I really thought that, okay, I think I've actually done something here. I need to go talk to the physio. But then just when you actually just stop and just think for a second, you're like, okay, what has happened? Okay, yeah, I actually, I'm actually I'm due on my period now, or actually, I've actually kind of skipped my period now. So just literally writing down some of your symptoms at certain times in your cycle, it's so important, because then a couple of days, you're back to your normal. There was, there wasn't this maybe little potential kind of injury that you felt, or pain, and then you should just know, then you just learn to understand your body, that actually this can be normal for me, may not happen all the time. So just, yeah, jotting down just little notes, even just the smallest of things, like, day 2 of your period, I feel good today. Later on that night, didn't feel so good. And it's
track the trends.
Yeah, track the trends. Honestly, there's so, and you think you'll remember.
I know, I got that, because then you can start to wonder, like, oh, was it down to the session that I did, or did I hydrate enough, or did I feel enough? So you're right, like, it is about looking about at your menstrual cycle, and kind of seeing maybe some of those things are tying some of these symptoms together.
Then maybe if you talk to someone, then for them it becomes so, the answer is so obvious about what it may be. And I just think, just creating that environment, and just becoming comfortable with it. As you say, 50% of the population get their periods, and it's something that can just be, really uncomfortable, but just, I think, really just kind of understanding and listening to your body is, and it's going to take time. It's, sometimes it feels like I still curse it now, but you just, it's about just becoming comfortable with it. And sometimes it's just a couple of those days that you get over, and something that we as women just have to get through. But I think we are definitely stronger people for it. I think it makes you
to be able to manage all that, a normal life, and is some feat anyway.
We're superhuman.
Thanks, Emil, for all the tips and for being so open on the topic. I guess if people have more questions, send them into us and we'll try and address them.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, Niamh.